Okay, this is where we learn about costs. There are two types of costs, basically, and if you've had an accounting class, you've probably already learned about fixed costs and variable costs, but let's go through and make sure we understand. Fixed costs are totally unrelated to what the company, or sometimes I'll use the term firm, produces. So fixed costs are not related to the firm's quantity of output. They're things like the mortgage. You know, you have to pay your mortgage or your rent. Whether you produce a single thing in your factory or not. Okay? So this is what we're looking at. We're looking at a company that produces something. And some things you just have to pay for. The CEO's salary, the accountant's salary, certain things, the lighting bill for some companies has a fixed component, sort of one of those, you get a discount on your usage, but you have to pay a fee for when you're not using, that sort of thing. So, let me give you an example. The airline industry has a lot of fixed costs, which means basically when they're not carrying a lot of passengers, they are not making a lot of money because, first of all, your profits are equal to your revenues. Revenues is sales dollars, or revenues are sales dollars, I guess. Revenues are sales dollars minus your costs equals your profit or loss. And I'll just say profit. Okay. Now, if you have fixed costs, that means that when you're having low sales, those costs are stuck. I mean, you still have them whether you produce anything or not. So airlines have lots of fixed costs, so they have big swings in their profit or loss. Because when times are bad, they still have to pay all those costs. I'll explain the costs in a minute. And when times are good, their costs don't go up very much because they're fixed. They're not related to the quantity. So they may be filling every seat on the plane. They may be, raising their revenues, but if their costs are fixed, basically, their profits are going to go up, basically, because they're not going to have big swings in their costs. So what are their fixed costs? If you're an airline, you have leases on your planes, which are the same whether you have one person flying or 200 people flying on your plane. A lot of the fuel on a trip is not related to how many people are on the plane. Whether there's one person or 200 people is not as big of a difference in fuel as you might think. It takes so much just to get an empty plane from one city to another, and a bit more if it's full. But there's a huge fixed component in the costs of flying. In a way, if you don't count the extra fuel cost of one extra person, which isn't going to be very much, one extra person flying is not going to be that much extra fuel. So if we don't count that, the only other costs that are associated with that one person flying would be what? The peanuts or the pretzels they feed you, or a soda. Obviously, I don't have all of the airline experience. There may be costs associated with ticketing, and there may be costs associated with your baggage. And however, what I'm trying to say is the pretzel would be a variable cost because it's associated with one more unit sold, right? They hand you a thing of pretzels, and the cost of that is one cost per customer, right? So as a quantity of people flown, the pretzels are variable cost. The lease on the plane has to be paid whether that extra person is on the plane or not. That is a fixed cost, the lease on the plane. Okay? Fixed costs have no relationship to the output quantity of the company. Variable costs are related. Obvious variable costs, if you're, let's say you're a furniture company, would be the wood raw materials that you use when you make a dining room table. You're going to have so much wood, right? So that's directly related to how many dining room tables you produce. That would be a variable cost. The CEO's salary or the rent or the lease on the factory would be fixed cost. Okay? Now, basically, costs can be broken up in different ways, but often economists will break it up between fixed cost and variable costs, and when you add them together, fixed costs plus variable costs equal total costs. Okay? Also, we need to look at average costs. There's several kinds of costs. There are, let's see, average. I'm just going to use the word av to shortcut. That means average. There'd be average fixed cost. Average variable costs. And average total costs. However you find it, the average, no matter which one you're using, the average of some kind of cost is going to equal the total cost divided by the quantity. So if it's total fixed cost, divide by the quantity. If it's total, in other words, whichever one you're looking at, if you're trying to find average fixed cost, then you're going to take the total fixed cost divided by the quantity to get the average fixed cost. Or if you're talking about the average variable cost, then you're going to take the total variable cost divided by the quantity. Or if it's average total cost, then you're going to take total cost or total cost divided by the quantity. Are you with me? You following this idea? And then there's one other kind of let me kind of mark it off so that we keep all of these on one chalkboard here. And that is marginal cost. You know I'm going to run out of space, so I'll just say, let's go to the next page. Okay, marginal cost. What does the word marginal mean? It means the change, right? The next one, the next unit. So what we're saying is, what is the change between two different costs at two different quantities? So marginal cost is going to equal the change in either the total variable cost or the total cost divided by the change in the quantity. So if the quantity only changes by 1, that's not a problem. You don't have to worry about the change in the quantity because you're dividing by 1. But sometimes with big companies, the changes in their charts may be changes of 1,000. So they may go 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 when they make a chart of costs. And so in that case, the change from one line to the next would be dividing by a change of 1,000. I'll explain that more later. Okay, so let's let's look at how we would actually find these things. Let's have one of these charts, quantities, and then let's have the fixed cost. And sometimes, it's best to write total fixed cost. So let's see if I can. That's amazing. Okay. And total variable cost. And total cost. Now if I were to number these columns, I don't have space at the top, but I got space at the bottom here. So this would be 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we're going to have let's see, a sort of a divider line between them. That looks terrible. I wonder if I can get rid of that and try again. That's pretty bad too. That's not too bad. Okay. And then we're going to have our averages. So we can have our average of our fixed cost. Oh, no. Sorry, what you're seeing is not what I'm seeing here. I pulled down that screen and I don't want to do that. Okay, let me try again. Maybe if I go from the other direction. And average variable cost. And average total cost. And marginal cost. So what we're going to do is I'm going to give you a few bits of information on each line and we'll learn. By the way, just some little rules. 2 plus 3 equals 4. What? Your teacher's telling you nonsense. No, column 2 plus column 3 equals column 4. In other words, total fixed cost plus your total variable cost equals your total cost. Okay? And it also is true that this column 5 plus 6 equals 7. Okay, so your average of your fixed costs in this column plus the average of your variable costs will equal the average of your total costs. Okay, that'll help. Now I'm going to give you some numbers. 0, 1, 2, this time I'll skip 1, 4, 6, 8, 9. Okay, so we'll have rows, and I hope I can draw these straight. The quantity column is going to be used in a lot of our dividing because we need to know what quantity we're producing. So the quantity, okay, I accidentally hit the button on my iPad and I don't know how long it kicked me out. So I have no idea what I was saying. It just suddenly cut me off. So I'm just going to start. That quantity applies to each line. Okay? So on line 1, those would be the costs when you produce 1. Now, if we're a big company, maybe 1 stands for 1 million. But right now, let's just pretend we're producing something big, like handmade small airplanes or something. So, they're going to bring in lots of money. And these are our costs per, at each number of airplanes, okay? At 0, what if I told you that at 0, total costs were 50? What are total variable costs? Well, they have to be 0 because they're related to how much quantity we produce. So what would total fixed costs be in column 2? Well, this one plus 0 equals 50, so total cost, if total cost is 50 and variable costs are 0, total fixed costs have to be 50. We can't find an average because we can't divide by 0, and marginal cost, there's been no change. I mean, from 0 to 0, right? So there's no way when the quantity is 0 you can find those. But let me just give you a number now. What if I said that this number is 10? I don't know, it could be 10,000, 10 million, I don't know, but 10 something, right? Could you fill in the rest of this? Fixed costs, well, they're going to be fixed no matter how much quantity we produce, so they'll always be 50. Right? But now we also have $10 of variable costs, so total cost will be 60. Okay? Now, average fixed costs are going to be, so I'm on this one here now. Average fixed costs at quantity 1 are going to be 50 divided by 1, which is 50. We could go ahead and do the rest of this column. This one, for one of the quantities 2, would be 50 divided by 2, which would be 25. It's more important to understand what we're doing than that we really solve it at this point, although you do need to solve them on tests and homework and things. Average fixed cost when the quantity is 4 would be 50 divided by 4. And 50 divided by 6, and 50 divided by 8, and 50 divided by 9. So we could get our calculators, we could... Okay, are you still there? Anyway, this thing keeps pausing on me, so I'm getting a little worried that somehow my speaking has gotten interrupted. I just got this thing that came up on the screen, and when I looked up it said resume recording, and I was talking while the thing was on the screen. So you would need to use a calculator when you're really solving these, but I'm just showing you the fractions that you would use to find those answers. Okay, what if I get let's solve the rest of this row 1. I've got average fixed cost. Now let's find average variable cost. Well, you would find the total variable cost, which is 10, and divide by the quantity, which is 1. Same with average total cost. Here in this block, you would take the total cost of 60 and divide by the quantity of 1. Okay, now how do we find marginal cost? Do you remember? It was the change in either the total variable cost or the change in the total cost, because the change in this case is 10 no matter which one, and then you divide by the change in quantity from the previous one. So from 50 to 60 the change was 10, and from 0 to 10 the change was 10. So you can use either one of those. So the change is going to be 10 divided by how much change happened on the quantity side. From 0 to 1. To be consistent, let's put it on the other side. From 0 to 1 was a change of 1, so there'd be 10 divided by 1. Okay, so we got a whole row done. That's not bad. Let me give you another one. What if I gave you that this one is 8? Well, it would be 8 divided by 1 was the original equation because there's a change of 1, right? So on a change of 1, marginal cost was 8. So that must mean that there was a change of 8 here. So this must be 18, 8 more than 10, and this must be 68, right? And now we just have to find average variable cost, which would be total variable cost divided by 2. So it'd be 18 over 2, right? And average total cost is going to be 68 divided by 2. Or we could have done it by adding this column plus this column equals this column. We could have said the 50 over 2 is 25 and the 18 over 2 is 9. So 25 plus 9 is 34. And is that the same as 68 divided by 2? Yes. Okay, so you could have done it two ways. Once you had the first two columns of these averages done, you could have just added them as well to find average total cost. Okay, now let's see. What if the only number I gave you is this one? What if I gave you I don't want to do that. How about if I said this number is 12? How do you do that? Oh no! How do you do that? Well, if you realize that that is the same as, and I'm running out of space, so I'm just going to go to the next screen real quick. If I said it was 12 and it was on the row for 4, the quantity was 4, then basically total variable cost, if this is the average, right? The average equals the total. This was average variable cost, right? Okay, it's equal to total divided by 4, right? So we can solve for this one by taking the 12 in here and multiplying times the 4. So 12 times 4, what is that, 48? So this number must be 48. That was a big jump. But it was a jump of 2 from the previous one. Okay, and then this one would be 50 plus 48. This one would be 98. See, we're starting to fill it in. Now we can figure out this one, can't we? You know what might be useful is for you to actually pause it once I put the number on the next row and try and work them all yourself. And then put it together, you know, turn it on and see if I got the same numbers as you. Okay? So, average total cost, you can either take average fixed cost of 50 divided by 4, plus, what is that, 12 and a half, right? Plus 12. So, what is that, 24 and a half? Or, you can take 98 and divide it by 4, and let's see, I've got my calculator here. 98 divided by 4 equals 24.5. Okay, so you could have done this two ways. The answer is 24.5, but I actually am going to write the other way around. I'm going to write 98 divided by 4. Okay, so you could have added this one and this one together and got 24.5 in this block, or you could have taken the 98 divided by the 4 and got 24.5 in this block. Either way. And that leaves marginal cost. What are we going to do here? We're going to look at the change from here, from 2 to 4 units. So we're going to be dividing by 2 because we're going from 2 to 4. There's a change of 2 quantity. And from here to here, 18 to 48 is what? A difference of 30? And 68 to 98 is a difference of 30. So you're going to take the change of 30 divided by the change in quantity, which is 2. So marginal cost is 15. Okay? Let's try another one. 142 is our total cost. What's our total variable cost? Well, it would be 142 minus our fixed cost, right? Because the total fixed cost plus the total variable cost equals total cost, so we can subtract the 50 from the 142, and doing that in my head, so what is that, 92? I'm absent-minded enough. I will check myself just so I won't mislead you. 142 minus 50, 92. Okay. All right, so we've got that filled in. Now we can find average variable cost by taking the 92 divided by 6. See, there's our quantity of 6, right? So the average, if you're going, I'm getting confused, AFC, AVC, look, FC is here, right? VC, TC. FC, VC, TC. The only difference is this one has a T, these over here have a T in front of them because they're totals, and these along in these, see, I've got this thing, this drop down. I can't, it let me. These along here have an A, which stands for average. So we've got quantities, and then we've got 3 totals, and then as we move rightward, we've got averages of the same totals we had before. They're the averages of them. And then moving to the right, we have marginal. So this marginal is by itself too. Okay? Hope that makes sense to you. Okay, so back to work. Right here. We're here. Average total cost. We can do this two ways. We can add up the average fixed cost and the average variable cost in that row, or we can take the total cost over here, which is 142, and divide by the quantity, 142 divided by 6, whatever that is. Okay, what about marginal cost? How do we do that? How do we do it? Well, we need to look at the change from 48 to 92 or from 98 to 142. That one I really do have to look up in the calculator. 92 minus 48 equals 44. And the change from 4 to 6 was 2. Right, so 44 over 2. Got it? Oh, let's do it the other way around. What if now we find out that nah, I don't want to do that one. Yeah, let's do it. Let's do that. Okay, see if you can work them and then turn it back on. Okay, are you ready? On this one, remember that the change was of 2, so that 30 is actually the change in the total, either total variable cost or total cost, I'll just say total cost, divided by 2 was the change, right? So the change in the total cost must have been $30 times 2, right? Just your algebra. So that's going to be 60. So going back, we know that the change from here to here was a change of 60, or from here to here was a change of 60. So add 60 to 142, and what do you get? 202. And add 60 to 92, and you get what? 152, right? Okay, and now we can solve for the rest of these. This one's going to be 152 divided by 8. And this one's going to be 202 divided by 8. Or it's going to be the sum of the average fixed costs, the average variable costs for that row. Okay, one more. What if I gave you I'm going to have to give you a number here. Okay. 31. See if you can solve it. Pause it a minute, work it out, and then see if you get the same things I do. Okay? Let's see. Sometimes you'll get weird decimals. That's fine. You can keep the fraction. But let's go with let's go to the next page and let's see. So we're saying that average total cost, is that what I had? Let me look. It was average total cost. Is a number that we have. So what did I say? 31? Not beta. Try again. 31 will equal total cost, right? Divided by 9. So we're going to multiply those two, 9 and 31. 31 times 9 equals 279. So this one, total cost equals 279. Back to where we were. We found this one. So this was 279. So we're finding the average of the total costs, right? So we need to find we have that's 31 in this block, right? So we want to multiply times 9 to find out what the total is. So if you have an average, you multiply by the quantity to find the total. And if you have a total, you divide by the quantity to find the average. So all we have to do now is find this one or this one, and then we find the other. 279 minus 50 is what? 229. And this one would be 229 divided by 9. Oh, I forgot about marginal cost. We have to find that one. The change from here to here and from here to here is what? 77? Is it? And so we're going to do 77 divided by the change in quantity, which is 1. Got it? That's how you solve these things. It's really not difficult. And using this chart kind of helps you put it together. It's pretty much a standard chart. Most textbooks have it in a very similar format. Once in a while they switch the order of the columns, but if you can see the relationship between all these costs, and if you can understand how we find them, this is a very good thing, because the coming chapters for the rest of the semester, we're going to be using these costs. When we get in class next, I'll graph them for you. And maybe we'll practice doing some more of these. See you in class.